All right, we're doing chapter 22, Between the Pillars, of the White Stallion of Lipizza. To Hans's great joy and relief, he was not sent home. Instead, everyone seemed kinder to him. Beriter Widdick's good mornings had a warmer ring. Kurt offered to teach him how to play chess. The stablemaster paid him a rare compliment. Hans, he said, you give your horses prideful care. I like that. Even Barina seemed more affectionate. Under his mask of dignity, a lurking gaiety expressed itself in playful nudges and loud whinnies of recognition. And so the blunder was soon forgotten, and the training went on. For Hans, the next year was filled with anguish and ecstasy. He had reached the crucial point in his career. He must solve the mystery of the corbeille, or he might as well be condemned to a lifetime of drudgery in the bakery. His one idea was to merge his identity so completely with Barina's that when he himself graduated to aerial movements, he could will Barina to leap more than 2 times. 1 or 2 leaps seemed like a withholding of his power. Hans remembered Colonel's words. Barina pulls a swindle, eh? Was it possible that Barina was swindling Beriter Widdick each Sunday? Sometime he would find out. Meanwhile, there were days when Hans didn't know whether he was making progress or not. In the quiet, sunlit hall, Beriter Widdick would bark his commands. Tempo 1! Tempo 2! Tempo 3! Hans obeyed, carrying on his inward dialogue, interpreting swiftly for himself. Tempo 1 at the canter, change lead every stride. Tempo 2, change lead every second stride. Tempo 3, every third. Left lead! With trigger control, Hans brought back the calf of his right leg, but just a fraction. He flexed Barina's head left, but only a hairbreadth. He shifted his weight onto his right seat bone. He brought back his left shoulder. In perfect union, he and Barina executed the flying change of lead at the canter. With every lesson, Hans tried to refine his signals until communication became so secret that only Barina was the wiser. So it sounds like he might be doing well. Here's a picture of them trotting around in their horses. Week by week, the work stepped up in pace, alone and in groups, with music, without music. From the walk, trot, canter, he graduated to the intricacies of the pirouette. Barina played no tricks here. He threw himself into the movement with such gaiety and precision that Hans couldn't help catching the rhythm. Pivoting on his haunches, forelegs stepping high, Barina danced around his hind feet as if they were nailed to one spot. In a flash of remembering, Hans saw the porcelain statues in the shop windows next to the tobacconist. He and Barina were molded together just like that, except that he and Barina were alive, waltzing. The days flowed together. The pirouette and the passage became habit. Muscles were doing the memory work, but daily repetition, they acted intuitively, faster than thought. Less and less, Hans carried on his dialogue with his inner self. Yet the more proficient he became, the more impatient he was to go on. He had come to the riding school to learn the mighty leaps above the ground. Every night he studied them in the book of instruction which Fraulein Morgan had loaned him for the 10th time. There was no falling asleep now. He was too near his goal. He studied the pen and ink drawings of the aerial maneuvers. Just by blinking, Hans could bring them alive, in color. Then he closed the book and did the corbeille in his mind. He was glad that this was Barina's specialty. The capriole, with its movement of horizontal flight, was spectacular, breathtaking. The horse appeared to do the splits in midair, but to a horseman like himself, the corbeille was greater. Any powerfully built stallion could do a succession of forward jumps, holding himself erect on his hind legs and carrying a rider besides. Well, that was... He sighed deeply, unable to think of a word big enough. One night, when Herr Braun was putting the chessmen back into their box, Hans dropped his book, walked over, and confronted him. Sir, he asked in exasperation, when will I ever begin the airs above the ground? The rider candidate showed surprise. The work you are doing on the ground, he said, is perhaps more difficult than the work above ground. One leads to the other, but slowly. If you are so impatient, he added almost brusquely, you should return to your bakery. Hans stood as though someone had struck him hard across the face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Becoming a full-fledged riding master was the only way he could see how he could live. Like a puppy who had been booted, he went over to the end of the room. In silence, he put his book away in his wardrobe. In silence, he undressed and crawled between the covers. He stared fixedly at an invisible spot on the ceiling. For a moment, he blamed the naked electric light bulb for the moisture in his eyes. He knuckled a tear away. Ah, Hans, the voice of Herr Braun was more gentle now. All good growth is slow growth, like a tree. You still have much work ahead of the piaf between the pillars. He spoke slowly, emphasizing each word. You see, Hans, the piaf is the first stage for all aerial work. It is like a base from which the rocket flies. Only a horse and rider who do it well can work together above the ground. Thank you, sir, Hans sighed, resigned to the truth. Always there seemed another year, another month, another movement, another step, another something before he got his chance. The very next day, Ritter Wittick ordered Verena ready for the piaf, wearing the padded noseband with rings attached. Had Erbron confided last evening's conversation? Hans was too breathless to care, almost afraid to believe he was getting so near his goal. At last, Hans, we try you on the piaf, the Bereader said. There was a hint of pleasure in his voice as he tied Verena between the posts. This for you is a big step forward. Now then, Hans, do you know what the piaf is? Yes, sir. It's a prancing in place with very short steps. It is a sort of... Hans hesitated. Of what? A sort of... Hans was afraid to put it into words. Erwitt clapped his hands in impatience. Getting ready for the corbeille, Hans blurted out. Exactly. Now let's see if you can do it. At first, sitting there proudly on Verena's back, Hans's heart flooded with energy, with the promise of the future. Verena lifted his legs like pistons and put them down again in the self-same spot. Through every fiber of his being, Hans could feel the lofty upward thrust, up and down, never advancing, never backing. Then, startled, Hans suddenly felt a strange lateral movement. He was bewildered. Something's wrong, he told Bereader Wittick. Quickly the man untied Verena, trod him away, very extended. Then come back to me. Hans did as he was told. Always after the piaf, the Bereader explained, a stallion must have a relief from the muscle tension of the short sustained steps. Yes, sir, I understand, sir, but what happened? I felt a change in Verena's action. He suddenly seemed to go sideways instead of up. What happened? The riding master's head nodded. He was smiling like a father whose boy has earned his first merit badge. Verena ignored your signals at the beginning, he said. He did the piaf without any real guidance. Then he expected some help from you. You must have been giving strong aid on one side and weak on the other. Now see if you can give even pressure with both legs. After the third try, followed by the free-moving trot, Wittick ordered Hans to dismount and reward Verena. I must reward you too, Hans. You quickly sensed the ugly lateral movement and corrected your error. To me, this shows promise for your future. Hans was too happy to reply. Glowing with pride, he took the small leather pouch from his pocket and poured a mound of sugar into the palm of his hand. Verena lipped it in soberly fashion. As he ground and swallowed the juicy sweetness, he eyed Hans familiarly, as much as if to say, It's been quite a session, boy? So here he is tied up between the pillars. And we'll see you next time for the rest of the book.